What job should marketing get done in a company?
Marketing is such a broad concept, but I think marketing should show not only what the business does or what the organization does, but who they are deep down. Showing the personal side of marketing more than just the thing you sell, the things you do, but really like how you impact, whether it's internally or externally, just giving that broad range of a human side. Marketing should be more than just the nuts and bolts. It should be the people too.
So helping humanize, personalize the brand beyond just the services and products that it's selling.
In this day and age, and I guess it always has been, it is a it's always has to do with money, and that is okay. But it's very much you have to humanize the product in order for people to be like, if they see something on LinkedIn, they're like, oh, that makes sense, or they can relate to it, or they feel something inside that makes them feel some sort of way, whether that's a negative or a positive. You have to humanize that.
Yeah, because emotion comes through usually a human to human interaction, or at least when a brand is more human than just the logo. That's Natasha, and she's currently the director of marketing for the Greater Green Bay Chamber, which is the city that I live in. And just overall, a great human being. We grabbed coffee a few months ago, and I instantly knew throughout that conversation I needed her on the pod. Her insights on marketing, leading a marketing team, and slowing down to go fast resonated with me, and I hope they resonate with you. Before we get back to the conversation, run the intro. Welcome to On Marketing, a show where we uncover what marketing is. I won't tell you what to think, I'll help you improve how you think about marketing and life. I'm Jordan Ogren, a marketing strategist by day and a podcast host by night. This was originally recorded on November 7th, 2025. All opinions shared in this podcast are the individual views of the host or guests, not those of their employers or associated organizations. This content is intended for informational purposes and should not be considered professional marketing or life guidance. Listeners act on the information provided at their own risk. I hate that I have to do that, but it pleases the legal team. Thank you for being here. Why do you believe that that's marketing's job? I'm going to assume that people buy from people, all these kind of thoughts in my own head, but what made that for you become, oh, that's marketing's job? Because
I am in a really unique position to work kind of deep dive into data and analytics, and I'm thankful that I get to spend that amount of time on that, because I think some marketers, whatever organization or business you're in, they don't either feel like they have the time to do that or the tools to have that. I'm incredibly thankful that I have the tools to spend a full day and take a look at, for example, the month of October, and compare and contrast things that happened in September, and I look at October and I can clearly see the link of, oh, we posted this and this is what it did to our numbers. So I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen the months where we don't humanize the things, and I'm like, oh, this was a rough month because we didn't, you know, humanize it or show people what we're doing out in the community. So I've seen that, and I'm also, I am the same way. I look at something on LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, I don't resonate with that, but the next one I'm like, oh, I resonate with that, and then I visit that person or that business's website.
so it's both a personal way in which you might kind of come into contact with products and services, but then also using data to just essentially prove that the more humanized, the more faces, the more personable, the better results. And obviously there's probably not a one-to-one or perfect correlation, but over time, if you're seeing, hey, faces, people do better, then that just kind of proves the point that one of marketing's job is to drive that humanizing, drive that personalization. That makes a lot of sense.
And it's a work in progress. Every day, every post, everything is different. We look at one month and we're like, this worked, and then we do the same thing the next month, and maybe it doesn't work all of a sudden. So it's being able to pivot and learn those lessons, take those things, and run with them.
What is something within the world of data, mainly within marketing, because data is kind of just a big term in general, but what have you changed your mind on in terms of maybe how you read the data, how you tell the story about the data? Is there anything that you've changed of how you read, how you do data within marketing differently today than 2 years ago, a year ago?
Uh, a- Quite a few things. Quite a few things, which is interesting. But I think one of the big things is I used to look at like just a large dashboard, and a lot of these were kind of vanity metrics. You know, you had impressions and reach, and you know, 2 years ago, me, if the impressions and the reach were, you know, high and my engagement rate was low, I would be like, what's wrong? You know, I have to bring the engagement rate up to like level with the impressions. And I have now realized as I learn more and dig more into data is those numbers don't always correlate. They don't need to anymore because your impressions and your reach, sometimes I have to just be happy with, okay, someone saw it, they didn't have to engage with it, and that's okay.
That makes sense. So trying to get further understanding on the kind of where each of those metrics play and the role that they change, because I do think that at least from a social piece of it, but even maybe web analytics, they kind of all slowly drift or change in their own meaning of, to your point, engagement rate might have been the biggest thing, but now it's like, let's just kind of focus on other levers or other data points
Yeah.
to improve.
Yeah, and I think for the longest time, as I was kind of learning about data and how to read it, I was very surface level. And at that point in my career, that was fine. You know, all I needed was like the surface level, pull the data, send it to someone. But now that I have the time to dive deeper, I can look and be like, you know, look at as a whole. Okay, so this is what we posted. This was the thing we posted. Was it a video, an image, or a link? And then how were impressions? What was the engagement rate? How long did they watch the video? So I think breaking it down to like, oh, this was a really good post. They're all good posts. It just depends on what you want to get out of those things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Each post or each kind of update has its own job to be done in its own sense and maybe reach, or it's just to get it out versus, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. How do you balance, because data in its core is historic, so you're looking back, how do you then balance the need, or you can take a stance that there isn't the need, but I believe there's a need to look forward, because if all we're doing is looking backward, then we're running into things as we're trying to go forward, and usually we're not bringing the future to where we're at today or trying to connect that. How do you balance? I don't think not using data is the right answer, so how do you balance this kind of forward and backward focus?
It's tough, right? Because like you said, like you can't dwell on what happened, but yet you have to dwell on what happened. We pull data for every event that we do, whether it's a signature event, a program event, and we have to the delicate balance of like, okay, so this didn't work, so we're going to carry this forward. But we have to leave room for something new or do something new. We can't do the rinse and repeat even though it worked. I think we have to acknowledge that, you know, it was a good month or a bad month. Take 2 or 3 really great things and, you know, take them with us into the next month or the next registration season or whatever that is. But don't get too comfy with it. You know, don't hold on to it and be like, this time next year, be like, well, we did this last November, so we're going to do it this November. Like, yes and no. You know, yeah, let's try it, but what about trying something different?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my mind even goes to potentially it's a task for multiple people. You have someone who has a skill in data analysis and you have someone who has a skill in visioning. And then you can kind of pair them together where it could be a hard skill to be both the writer and the editor, almost using that of like, there's going to be someone, I'm a very vision focused person, but I've been a one of one marketer, so I've had to build my own frameworks of like, how do I not just let go of data and like essentially just be blind? But there's so much within marketing I find that the data is Henry Ford probably didn't actually say this, but if I asked what people wanted, they would have told me a faster horse. So I think there's this always challenge of like, you'll never get to a new innovation purely looking at Google Analytics, but sometimes Google Analytics can give you an insight or something that a visionary person can kind of take that and say, that we need to be here, or we need to kind of totally change. How do you, because you have a team, but not all people have a team, how do you wrestle with that? Are you more of the data and you maybe lean on others for the vision piece, or have you tried to build your own way to do both?
So when I first started, I was both. I was everything. I was, the social media writer, the newsletter writer. I was trying to measure data. It's doable, no doubt. I mean, as marketers, we wear 78 different hats, and that's okay. But right now, I'm incredibly blessed with an amazing team that I can take this data, give it to them, and they're the vision. They get the graphics, they write the copy, they do the video. They can take that data and either do something with it or not. It's totally up to them, but they kind of help guide the vision, and then I can come up, behind them and measure how the video did, how that one post did. It's not rare, but in a small organization, it's rare to have a marketing team at this size where we all have our core competencies. We went to college for all this kind of stuff, but to have us all in kind of buckets and we are experts at all of these things, I think that's really unique. And we work off each other so well.
Yeah, more marketers are probably in the 78 hat camp, but even with the team, I can even imagine you wear 34 hats, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
So just less than all of them. That makes so much sense, Natasha. And just from this conversation already, it seems that you have that skill or that desire for the data, which is so, because I know some people don't even have that. So kind of finding people that have that, but also pairing that or building your own ways. And I know AI could even help with this of like, help me think of the future because I just can't think of it in my realm, in whatever that industry or pocket is. Yeah, that makes sense. What is something, Natasha, that you've been thinking about, maybe talking loud about, that you don't hear enough, or as many marketers or people like you thinking about or talking about? Does anything come to your mind of like, I just wish more people were thinking about this, maybe not doing something, or maybe it is doing this because I've, gotten this result, and I just don't think enough people are aware or are doing that?
I think, and I know, video is such a stronghold. I think the short form video is is really interesting to see. So as obviously there's different ranges of businesses that work with short form video that work, but in like our organization as a chamber, I look at other chambers, you don't see that as often. And I think I'm like, interesting, because I know, they know, we know that there's so many cool things happening, whether it's internally or externally, whether it is an event that we are hosting or a Halloween party that we are doing or something like that. And it's really interesting to see that small organizations aren't taking advantage of it, because it's simple, it's easy. You don't have to be an expert in editing video to put that kind of stuff together. And we too are slowly building on that. And for a while, we were like, we're just going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks, and it's sticking. So that's been really fun to see. It took a little bit, but yeah, short-term video is a really, really interesting thing that I think more smaller organizations should take advantage of.
Yeah, I always find it curious using a metaphor or a story. If you go to a beach and everyone's sitting outside the water, not in it, and you're kind of curious of like, is there a shark? Is there a reason no one's swimming in this water? Or is it just that no one has the courage and I'm going to be the one who swims in it, and it's like really warm and it's great. And I'm like, oh, I love it. Because I think sometimes differentiation at its core can get you to take a position that nobody nobody's taking, but there could be a reason why nobody's taking that position that you don't know about. But I think more so it's like the latter, where I think short term, I don't know why I keep saying that too,
Right?
short term rentals, short form video. I think it's like this kind of challenge or maybe fear of like, how do I do that, or whatever, that keeps people from doing it. So then that becomes actually a blue ocean of like, let's go deeper in here because others aren't willing, others don't know how, even though, to your point, the barrier is so low now with like CapCut and some of these things that you can use to edit your videos. So I love that insight.
Yeah, it's cliche, but trying new things is scary. And especially if you are a one-man band of a marketer, or even if you are a marketer and an engagement coordinator, like if you do all of the things, it's super scary to start it or even think about starting it. And it may stink the first one or two or three videos, but I think it's important to try it. It's important to just do the thing, post it, and see what happens, and ask for help. That was one of the biggest things I think for us too. Is, it was new for us. We didn't know if it was ever going to work, so we tested and tried it and asked for help, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, it's never going to be pretty or super smooth, but you just have to kind of push through that. You learn things. Maybe you don't end up doing the said thing in the end, but you gain insights and stuff of like, yeah, short term is just short term. It's not for us. So you can then go to long form or something like that. But until you try the thing, you don't know if carrots or broccoli could be your favorite
Yep.
vegetable until you put some in your mouth. Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I have a kid, so I'm thinking about food and how to
that's
make
fair.
people favorites. All right, Natasha, I love that. I think we could probably go on for a lot longer on
Oh,
marketing,
for
but I
sure.
think I want to change it to maybe a more important topic of life. And now this question will be specifically for you. So don't try to answer for everyone because I know you probably would preface that this is just for me. But what is for you the purpose of life? What is the job that you're hiring life to do for you? So at the end, you look back and you say, that was a job well done because of X, Y, or Z.
I think it is being present in every moment, and that was my New Year's resolution. 11 months in, we're still struggling. But being present for every single moment, and whether it's in the office, out of the office, sitting in my kitchen, sitting on my deck, I think just observing and seeing things that, we work so fast. I work so fast, in life in general. And I think slowing down and seeing the things that are there that normally in a fast paced day you wouldn't see, is incredibly important. And when I look back, even, a year from now, I'll be like, okay, I was present for these moments and I'm incredibly thankful for that.
What made you have that as a New Year's resolution? What was the impetus for that?
There was a lot of life changes, um, last summer. So, and it all kind of happened at once. So I kind of looked back and I was like, you know, after any major life event, you kind of reflect on, you know, what is my purpose and what have I been doing? And I ran my life like a marathon. So I was always going, always planning, always busy. And I realized that, I had to ask myself, like, what am I getting out of it? And while I was like, well, I'm getting a lot out of it, I felt like I wasn't getting everything out of it. So I really had to tell myself to slow down. Don't rush. You don't need to plan that thing. You don't need to do this thing, and enjoy every piece of it.
What was that sense of hurry built upon? What kind of maybe false belief or false model was that built upon? Or was Natasha from the womb just going, 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 and that was kind of the way in which your wife?
Yeah, that is kind of the way I'm wired. There's also, I used to work in the news industry, and that was a grind. It was a constant. I am thankful for those moments and thankful for that career, but it sets your heart rate up a little bit more, and you're just constantly going because you feel the need to go. And I realized there's no reason for that. I can get the things done I need to get done at a slower pace. I don't need to do more than that. So it's yes, I've always been like this, but it's been it's been nice to slow down.
No, I love that. I think the hurry is a very common thing, or just the opposite of slow, whatever that is, fast. But the reason or like why someone is that way, I find to be interesting, because I think a lot of it is built on DNA or like who you are. But then there's also these other, I find, misbeliefs of I'll be worthy when I complete this or when I achieve that. Or I've heard there's this quote that essentially the present moment is a preparation for the future. Like every present moment for certain individuals, perfectionists, or just people who go fast is always a preparation for the future. But then you never get to live that present moment because you're always preparing for a future, even days before you die. Like it just is like a thing that, so I always find that curious because I've had to work through a lot of those false beliefs, and even this thought too of productivity and how much I can get done, of accepting my finiteness and realizing I'm not going to do all of my stuff. So what are the three, what are the four things? And I find a lot of life is avoidance, whether it's procrastination of that task, or I'm just going to keep doing things so fast that I don't actually have to address the question of what truly matters and what are the three, what are the core things for me. So it's interesting that it's a bit of DNA for you. That's how you kind of came, and then the jobs, the environments you were in also push you, because I can only imagine news and those types of environments are just by default very fast paced, daily stuff happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a very goal checklist oriented person, so I've had to, unleash the grip a little bit on the to do list. And it has helped me. It's been painful, but it has helped me immensely to not have to be like, I need to check off these four things to know that I did well that day. Because I did well regardless of what I did or how I did it. I, got up in the morning and I had my cup of coffee and I am good now. So,
Yeah, I just posted about this, but there's a quote from a book I'm reading that you don't need to do anything to earn joy. Joy is a birthright. And I think when we have this growth orientation or focus, we almost believe we don't deserve joy yet. It'll be tomorrow that I can finally be joyful. And joy and happiness are very different. Joy, why that is a birthright is because I believe joy, the Spirit of God, it's that indwelling that is the peace, it's the joy. It's not the I won the lottery happiness. But I find the faster we go, the more we find that we are just always void of joy. One question that I always enjoy to ask, there's many ways to ask this question. Some people talk about, if you had a billboard, what would you put on it? But I'm going to ask you, there's this movie Inception, which is all about people going in dreams, and it's kind of nefarious things, not good things that they're incepting in the dream. So then tomorrow that person wakes up and they sell their company, or they give a stake to somebody because that was a dream that was incepted. But for you, I'm going to ask the same question, but I want it to be more benevolent, more positive for the entire world outside of marketing, that you have a wand and you get to kind of essentially incept an idea that everybody wakes up tomorrow and we live out of that idea as our own. What idea are you incepting in the minds of every human so then tomorrow they wake up with that idea and they actualize it and they live out of it?
I think, and this kind of goes along of the being present, I take a breath. And that sounds a little harsh, but I think it's really important that, and I struggled this for a long time of just life goes so fast. And I fear that we don't appreciate it as much as we should. But taking that single breath, just slowing down, take the breath, and appreciate what's in front of you, I think is incredibly important. We work our 8 to 5 and we go home and we do more chores and we do more things. And it's important to do that type of things because you have to as an adult. But I think appreciating every moment, taking that breath and just looking outside or just being there. Life is tough, especially these days. So doing those things and slowing down, taking a breath are incredibly important.
And that kind of just encapsulates your kind of message from what is the objective of life. So I like that. And I think peace is a word that is maybe coming to my mind, presence leading to peace. It's almost like every day there's a cup of peace on the table, and if we're not present and we're not there, we pass it by and we say, I'll drink it tomorrow. And that cup is the same size tomorrow, but we fail to realize if we were to drink it, tomorrow it's going to be filled up. And then the next day and the next day. And rather than saying like, I'll drink it at the end of the week, or I'll take a breath when it's Saturday or Sunday, we realize that if we just took a breath, we'd have a full cup to then take another breath. And like, we have that always there. And I think for me, it's come from a grappling with the kind of finiteness of my life, whether that be like legacy, which is this big word. Everybody wants to leave a legacy. And I'm reading a book that talks about tons of really great civilizations. And they're like, name one person from that, Sumerian group. And it's like, there had to have been super influential, super important people in that time. But we're 1,000 years, we're 1,500 years, and nobody remembers a single person. And I think that opens your eyes up to like breathe a little, to realize, holy crap, the life I'm leading isn't that important. In 100 years even, I will be forgotten. And it starts to shift of like, okay, rather than focusing on legacy of this future thing that no one will actually care about, my legacy is how I live every single moment, every single day, and make those people around me feel how they feel good, which is hopefully the goal. But that for me has shifted of like, I need to breathe, because if I don't breathe, I fall into this, I call it essential ego of like, my life's so damn important. I need to go. And I can't stop to talk to you because you're not that important. And it's like, wow, like that is a horrible myopic view of life that like you can even leave a legacy, but that is my own stance, which then leads to me being far more present in the moment, because that is where the legacy is actually built, not like building a business or something, because even businesses, even people who found countries, we just forget about them, or maybe one or two people, Socrates, Seneca, but how many other great people were at that time that we've just forgot about? And if their goal was to be remembered, they failed really badly, but if their goal was to be important and useful in that moment, in that day, we don't know, but I think they could have been, and that would have done more for society than trying to leave a legacy that is like sandcastles on the beach.
Yeah, I love that your point of legacy, and it, with the definition of it, somehow is morphed into this. I need to, like you said, I need to build a business. I need to hit this amount of followers on my LinkedIn. Legacy can be small in home, how you impact and influence the people around you. You know you've done well when the people around you feel good and are comfortable with you and have those good feelings. It doesn't have to be this, legacy doesn't have to be this big thing anymore. It can be small and comfortable. And I know I did good, and I know I treated my friends and family right, so that is my legacy. Some people, I think it's hard for some people to think that way. So.
Well, the ego is a monster. So I my personal self have had to wrestle with, and I think some of those, like just understanding you will die and what happens after you die, you're swallowed into the earth, and after one or two generations of your I don't remember my great grandfather. So it's like even within that tight of a time frame. So Natasha, final question. There's a lot of things changing in the world, not just in marketing, but just like I said, in the larger world. What do you hope, though, with those things changing 10, 15 years from now, what do you hope stays the same? Maybe we lost it with COVID, but like something that we've recently had, what do you hope that doesn't go away? Because 10 to 15 years, we could have cyborgs doing everything. Like, what do you hope is the same for us humans in 2035, 2040?
I think it very much like the human interaction, or interacting, whether it is online or in person, but being able to interact with other people. I think having that human to human contact, discussion, conversation is incredibly important. We can't bury our heads in the sand. I often bury my head in the sand and just know that I have to do X, Y, and Z just to get through the day. And I don't talk to a single human all day. And that is incredibly bad. So I hope that 10 or 15 years down the road, people are still grabbing that cup of coffee and talking about life the way that we are, or, messaging someone, happy Friday, hope you're doing good. It's those little, just those small interactions that I think can make a person's day or their week. And I hope we don't lose that. We just have to be really nice to people. And I think sometimes we lose that.
No, I like that you talked about just even your own workload. It's not like a decision to be isolated, but it's so many things that can pull us to be isolated, but the importance of people. And I think AI and some of these things will only increase the barriers or obstacles. Or the way that we can be isolated, but who even knows? Maybe connecting with a, AI person, you can find love. I don't believe that, but maybe somebody does.
Yeah, and I never, a couple weeks ago when you and I met for coffee, we were talking a lot about AI. And I don't want to negate or discount AI. It can be used in so many great ways. But I hope that, the nice little, hey, how are you? I hope you have a great week. That, like, those kind of interactions continue. They don't have to be groundbreaking. You don't have to write a paragraph about how you appreciate and love this person, but it can really just be a, I hope you're hanging in there kind of message.
Well, I would hope and love to see the world be there in 2035, 2040 still, because I think we're already, with COVID and certain things, moving away from this small check-ins and stuff. So I hope maybe AI can force us to really get back to some of those core things for humans, seeing each other as humans and saying hi and how's it going and holding space, pausing, breathing with people too. So all of the messages we talked about. Well, Natasha, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and just your humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And this is the end of the podcast. What one idea or topic of conversation stood out to you today? Write it down, share it with a friend, post it on social. The main thing is take action. That's how we go from theory to mastery. We need to practice. We need to put it into practice. Thank you for listening and being here, and I hope you tune in next week.